Let's move on with the rest of the programming. The opportunity in the global market for women finance is estimated north of $2.5 trillion US dollars. But how can gender bonds and mobile phones be used to reshape access to capital for women entrepreneurs, especially in sub-Saharan Africa? Let's hear from this high panel of high-profile experts in banking, finance, inclusive investment, chatting to this subject at the Morocco's Africa Finance Industry Summit.
Where we are missing really the opportunity is the missing middle. To the example of the entrepreneur that was quoted at the beginning, is those women that, and we have one in the room here, fintechs that have started, are educated, have a business that has demonstrated, a model that has been demonstrated, but can't raise the $1 million, or between the $500,000 and the $1 million. And there, the greatest barriers are those investor bias that still persist. So IFC launched a program last year that we call She Wins Africa, replicating on She Wins Arabia. And what we do in this program is that we invest into building the capacity, obviously, of those women to pitch with different investors, but we do a lot of work on the investors as well, in terms of addressing the bias that are typical when they assess women programs. So the first one, and the point was made, was data. Evidence, data, benchmark, to be able to really understand how to design, model those bonds. The second is around the capacity. And there I want to talk about the capacity of both the issuer and the investors. We need to invest for them to understand the product, to understand how to use the product.
Commercial banks are uniquely positioned because we work locally, so we understand the markets that we're in and we understand the challenges that the women face. But there's still that problem, right, of how do you get the investors on the table, which one spoke about. We were talking earlier just before this about how it's very difficult. So a lot of people who want to invest or who understand the gender bonds and want to invest have foreign currency. We can't afford to lend to them in foreign currency just because most of the countries that we're in have a lot of volatility around the currency. You cannot lend money to small businesses in dollars and then they're making money in naira. They might not be able to pay when it's time to pay back. So we have to find a way to educate our local investors to understand why these bonds are important so they can invest in them locally. And again, you can't lend them at the local lending rates. You can't raise monies at the local lending rates. So there has to be a lot of education for the investors so they understand the long-term value and maybe, I guess, by showing a bit more impact, just like Zainab had in her presentation, about how there's sort of like a ripple effect, not just immediate returns on your investment, but that there's a ripple effect. The families benefit, everybody benefits when the women have access to funds. So I guess we can help with the data process in terms of providing data from what we understand, and we can help with investing in getting the investors to understand So we have a women initiative, right? So we have a desk focused on women, and what we do is not just provide funding, which is just one of the things we do, but we also do capacity building. We help with other things like setting up your business, making sure you have the right registration, you pay your taxes, you do the right bookkeeping. And we have this in 12 of the countries in Africa that we operate in right now. So I think that has also helped because in the beginning we started off sort of like getting the funding and not being able to apply it. But now that we've been able to sort of like get the structure in place, we're able to provide more funding. I think since we started this W initiative, we've probably gotten access in both cash and guarantees to about over $1 billion, actually.
You know, the mission and vision of EcoBank Group is actually to participate in the economic development and financial integration of the economies in which we operate. And as you know, at least 80% of SMEs are run by women. The issue is that they are normally in the informal sector. So in 2019, we launched the Elevate program in the 33 operating affiliates of our group. And so far, we have over 80,000 women on this program and have been able to finance them with over $300 million. In addition to that, we have been able to do a lot of digital and financial literacy programs because that is also an issue. The difficulties that we have to scale is because sometimes women are not aware of the possibilities and do not have access to this ecosystem.
We have to continue look at the woman entrepreneur in a holistic way, because this is how also you continue to make the case for the potential of this woman entrepreneur. Because when I talk to a number of them, yes, capital and access to capital is capacity. Yes, we keep talking about capacity, but in some instances, many of them are telling me, you know, I have been sent to so many capacity building programs. Now what I need is really the money to scale my enterprise. But the other bigger gap that is sometimes overlooked is the market access, the integration in those value chain of large corporates. We've run a program in Kenya called Sourcing to Equal, where we've bring 10 companies from the real sector that are making some commitment in terms of the diversification of their value chain. And this has resulted in women entrepreneurs having access to 100 corporate bids. Yes, it's a small scale, but I think that this kind of program have to be put in place in combination with the programs around the allocation of capital. Otherwise, we will not really unleashing the full potential of those.
So in terms of strategy, I think we have all illustrated that the commercial banks have been involved by coming up with programs and continue to come up with programs and services that can help the women get to the level that they want to get to. But on the other hand, I think the governments have a very key part to play because it has to also be an intentional initiative from their end by putting it in the national strategies. We have seen some countries that have put it as a requirement when a company is being opened, the percentage of women that have to be on boards. We have seen that there are tax relief for certain industries that are focused on women. So I think governments have to continually put it on their country strategies to make it a reality. We also have to learn from the lessons of those who have done it in other countries. Yes, globally, in international markets, there have been gender bonds and we have been able to see the advantages and the disadvantages. We have seen now in Morocco, I think a gender bond was launched. In South Africa, a gender bond was launched. And I think EcoBank, we are going to launch one next year. We are going to launch a gender bond as a corporation. And I think IFC mentioned the same about what they're doing. But then now, what lessons have we learned? Because we have to keep adjusting ourselves as we go along. We have to be able to leverage from the lessons that others have seen when they launched it so that we can adjust our frameworks. We are coming up with a framework that is going to be launched next year.